What are a few of the craziest robbery attempts? Let's find out, starting with number 5. Come on over. Gracie Lemke from Florida, of course she's from Florida, found herself in a world of trouble after setting up a guy who was looking for some quality adult time. It all started on Facebook Messenger, where Lemke allegedly worked her charm and made this guy believe he was in for an intimate rendezvous. The poor guy, blinded by the allure of Gracie's looks, decided to meet up with her at what he likely thought was her house. As the guy gets out of his car, Joshua Timmons, who seemingly came out of nowhere and decided to join the party. Timmons restrained the unsuspecting guy while Lemke and her partner in crime, Lauren Locker, took a dive into the man's car to see what they could get. Timmons is a pretty big dude, but somehow the guy managed to break free and made a dash for freedom. As the guy ran off, Timmons pulled out a weapon and let off a round, hitting him in the back. The trio managed to grab the guy's stuff, including his phone, and made an escape in Lemke's car. The cops managed to track down the suspects and discovered a bunch of evidence where Lemke and Timmons had been shacking up. When police arrived, Timmons was burning the clothing he was wearing during the altercation. Police searched the home and found some weapons, some illegal substances, and basically everything else you'd need for selling. Luckily, the victim who got caught up in all of this survived after undergoing some serious medical procedures. Timmons is facing charges and was held without bond. Locker was facing charges of burglary and theft and is also still in jail. Lemke is out on a $20,000 bond, but is facing charges of robbery and burglary. Number 4. Ransacked. Tamara Ecclestone, the daughter of Formula One tycoon Bernie Ecclestone, who lives a life of opulence, had her life take a wild turn. Tamara lived in a mansion worth £70 million in Kensington in the UK. You'd think that place would be as safe as a fortress, right? Wrong. A crew of thieves decided to rob her house, and once they got inside, they went on a rampage, turning the place upside down. They were inside for about an hour until a security guard discovered them. The burglars hightailed it out of there, but took a big score with them. All in all, they made off with over £20 million worth of stolen watches and jewelry. For Tamara, it wasn't just about the money either. The crooks stole a bracelet her husband gave her when their daughter was born, as well as diamond earrings that were a gift from her mom. This wasn't the gang's first robbery, and they're believed to have carried out similar robberies across Europe. They were meticulous planners and scoped out their targets, did recon missions, and even ran drills. They also celebrated like celebrities, and on one occasion treated themselves to a bottle of Cristal champagne and a sushi feast after one of their robberies. But here's a juicy twist. The cops cracked the case in a way you'd never guess. One of these geniuses sent a risque pic to a hotel's after-hours phone. You know, the kind of photo that rhymes with kick flip. Yeah, you heard it right. The move inadvertently exposed their little operation. Cops were struggling to find these burglars, but a Scotland Yard detective decided to ask a receptionist at a budget hotel about guests from mid-December 2019. The receptionist remembered an incident involving a man who had been sending her colleague some inappropriate messages, and she saved his number in her contacts as Weirdo, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but it worked out. The detective traced that number and was able to find the crooks. 3 of the thieves were caught and got some serious jail time for their trouble, but the mastermind, a man named Daniel Vukovic, slipped through the cracks and is probably somewhere in Serbia sipping cocktails. Tamara went on record about how all of this messed with her head. She said she couldn't shake the fear of knowing that one of the burglars was still out there lurking. The whole story is a reminder that all the riches in the world doesn't guarantee peace of mind. Mo money, mo problems. Still, we'd take the money if it's all the same though. Number 3. Teen copycats. A couple of teenagers apparently thought it'd be a good idea to stage their very own version of the Great Train Robbery. You know, that ancient epic holdup from way back in 1963. Back then, there was this legendary heist called the Great Train Robbery. A bunch of guys snagged a whopping £2.6 million, which is, of course, basically a lot more in today's money, from a Royal Mail train in Buckinghamshire. Nearly 60 years later, in the middle of the night, near Lockerbie, Scotland, a Royal all-mail train was chugging along on the West Coast main line, just minding its own business. But these two teens allegedly messed with the signals and were able to sneak onto the train. Well, the police got wind of this and rolled in. Lo and behold, they found the daring duo, a 17-year-old and 18-year-old, just relaxing in one of the train carriages. Apparently, some packages on the train were messed with, but it doesn't sound like their loot matched the original robbery since nothing was actually taken. The British Transport Police swooped in on the scene and took the two into custody. The official word is that they were charged with all sorts of trouble. Can't say these teens aren't getting creative with their extracurricular activities. Apparently, their little escapade caused chaos for a bunch of commuters on top of it. Trains were delayed and canceled left and right. Damage to the signal box meant lines were blocked and passengers were left stuck in their tracks, so to speak. In the end, this crazy attempt at a retro heist ended up causing more headaches than it was worth. Apparently, nothing was taken, but even still, the two young rebels got slapped with charges for messing around with the goods, causing mayhem, and being, well, generally disruptive. It makes you wonder what those darn kids were doing in the train car. Were they actually there to rob it? Or was it just something crazy kids do and later post on the Snappy Chats and their Tiki-Talkers? Number 2. No one pays attention. An upscale jewelry store in the heart of Paris fell victim to a Hollywood-style heist in broad daylight, leaving the city in disbelief. The target was the Piaget store, nestled in an area of the city known for its luxury stores. As shoppers leisurely browsed the store, 3 robbers executed a meticulously planned operation that left everyone stunned. It was a sunny day in Paris. Shoppers were strolling around, soaking in the city's vibes, and in walks our unexpected crew. 2 guys looking sharp in suits, and a lady all dolled up in a dress. But they weren't there for a casual window shopping session. Customers and staff suddenly found themselves staring down the barrel of firearms, and chaos erupted as everyone got hustled to the back of the store. These robbers weren't playing around. They took charge and had everyone lie flat on the floor. The crooks clearly knew that store like the back of their hand and zeroed in on all the good stuff, making one unlucky employee unlock the display windows and even crack open a trunk that held the store's crown jewels. It seems like the crew had every single step planned out and accounted for, like it was a part of a script. When they'd gathered enough bling to make a rapper jealous, they made their escape on foot, melting into the crowd. They hopped on motorbikes to keep the adrenaline rush alive and to vanish into thin air. Luckily, they pulled off this high-stakes caper without so much as a scratch on anyone, further demonstrating how well this crew was prepared. The jewels they snagged weren't exactly pocket change either. They walked out with jewels and gemstones worth an insane £13 million. The Paris prosecutor's office wasn't about to let them just walk away and launched an investigation into the brazen broad daylight heist. Now let's talk about Piaget, the company behind those extravagant watches and gems. Their creations aren't your everyday accessories. We're talking about watches that could cost more than a small car. Piaget is like an A-list celebrity of luxury goods, rubbing shoulders with giants like Cartier, Van Cleef, and Arpels under the Richemont Group. This robbery wasn't the first of its kind in Paris either, as daring heists have become something of a trend there. So, as Paris caught its breath after this heart-stopping escapade, you can bet everyone was doing a double take on their current security measures. At the time of this video, no arrests have been made. Leave it to Paris to class up a basic smash-and-grab style robbery too. In the US, people are just running into stores, smashing stuff, and bouncing. This crew rolled up dressed nicely, controlled everything so no one got hurt, and then left without a fuss. They probably even said please. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay right on this video for our past release to find out how Kevin Hart's personal assistant was robbing him blind. Number 1. Knock knock. You know how they say, don't mess with Texas? Well, this story, which reminds us of a Western movie, explains why. Imagine a quiet Texas neighborhood where there was a regular guy and 2 wannabe bandits who thought they could outsmart him. They didn't know that Texans aren't known from backing down to anybody. Aaron Contreras and his buddy decided to rob the apartment of Ethan Rodriguez, posing as maintenance workers. They knocked on the door, and the charade began as the 2 workers told Ethan they were there to check the filters on his air conditioner. But Rodriguez wasn't buying it, so he looked at his doorbell camera app, told them nobody was home, and it seemed like they left. But Contreras Contreras wasn't one to take no for an answer, so he came back. And this time, he was packing heat. He also brought a masked friend, and the two were no longer knocking. They started kicking, trying to break the door down. But Rodriguez wasn't about to let these two clowns in his home. He had his own firearm, and after seeing that Contreras was armed, he wasn't afraid to use it. The weapons were discharged, and the doorbell camera captured it all. Rodriguez sent a total of 13 rounds, turning his front door into a slice of Swiss cheese. Thankfully, Rodriguez's wife and 7-month-old baby were not home, nor were his neighbors. Rodriguez's quick thinking stopped the bad guys in their tracks, sending both men scurrying away, one of them sending 2 rounds back at the door. Contreras was arrested later that day and hauled away by the cops. He was charged and hit with various charges. As for his masked friend, as of this video's release, the police are still searching for him. This story just goes to show that if you're doing crimes in a place as universally armed as Texas, you're doing so at your own risk. She wanted to help her expat friends in Dubai by helping them send money to their foreign bank accounts. But instead, she just kept the money. But she probably isn't the worst person to find to help you. That person may just be Gilbert Arenas' assistant who stole close to $7 million from him. The same thing happened to Kevin Hart. His personal assistant stole close to $1 million from him. Number 4, no laughing matter. Crime can happen to anyone. And that's what happened to Kevin Hart. From 2017 to 2019, Kevin Hart was defrauded out of nearly $1 million in unauthorized credit card charges. Crime can happen to anyone. And that's what happened to Kevin Hart. From 2017 to 2019, Kevin Hart was defrauded out of nearly $1 million in unauthorized credit card charges. The scammer was none other than Hart's personal shopper, Dylan Jason Sire, who was trusted with Hart's personal credit card to make purchases. Sire, a Long Island native, owned a personal shopper business in which he charged the actor's credit card with legitimate purchases, but the things he bought weren't always what Hart had in mind. Sire spent about $923,000 of Hart's money and an additional $240,000 on jewelry and watches from a luxury jeweler in California. He spent thousands on fine art and other collective items, including 5 Patek Philippe watches worth more than $400,000. He bought a Sam Friedman painting, 16 Bear Brick collector dolls, 5 Cause collectible dolls, and 2 Louis Vuitton bags. He showed off many of these purchases on his personal Instagram page. Sire and Hart met in 2015 through his personal shopping business, Sire Consulting, LLC. He was hired to make several purchases for the actor and was given his personal credit card under the assumption that he would only make authorized purchases. By the time Hart uncovered the year-and-a-half-long scam, he was out more than $1 million. The cops kicked in his door to serve a search warrant in February 2021. They recovered about $250,000 worth of cash and goods. Sire was arraigned and charged with a laundry list of fraud and theft charges and potentially faces up to 25 years in prison. The Queens County District Attorney warned that no one, not even celebrities like Kevin Hart, are immune to scams. Number 3. Almost a Hilton. Renata Shamrakova, the personal assistant to Nikki Hilton's ex-husband, spent nearly $1.6 million of his money on elite Amex on shopping sprees and exotic vacations. She conned Todd Meister while she worked for him at his Upper East Side townhouse in Manhattan. Neighbors started noticing piles of packages showing up at Renata's door. They were later discovered to contain high-end jewelry with expensive rings, necklaces, and bracelets. She also used his credit card to purchase airline tickets and fund her travel abroad. She covered her tracks by paying off the $800,000 credit card bill using Meister's JP Morgan checking account and transferring the funds to American Express. At the heart of the story, we have have Nikki Hilton, Todd Meister, and of course, Renata Shamrakova. Nikki Hilton is an American businesswoman, socialite, model, and fashion designer, but she's probably most known for being Paris Hilton's younger sister and fellow heir to the Hilton family fortune. Born into the wealthy Hilton family, she continued her streak of inherited wealth by marrying into the Rothschild family through James Rothschild in 2015. Paris was Nikki's maid of honor, and they honeymooned in Botswana after the wedding. Before that, Nikki married Todd Meister. He was a football star at the uppity Riverdale Country School before going on to Harvard to get a degree in business. Then, Todd started a company in the mid-90s dedicated to investing in internet startups. He sold the company in 2000 and started working as a hedge fund manager while still finding time to party. Meister was Nikki's longtime friend before they started dating on and off in 2003. Nikki was just a kid when she married Meister, but he treated her like gold and they had great chemistry. Her parents were thrilled about the wedding. The ceremony was held in August 2004 at a Las Vegas wedding chapel. Nikki wore an aqua blue silk dress and Meister donned a button-down shirt and pants. Paris witnessed the vows along with Bijou Phillips and comedian Jeff Beecher. But not everyone was convinced it would last. Meister's friends guessed it was a publicity stunt that would get annulled 3 days later. Unfortunately for the couple, he wasn't so far from the truth. The marriage was annulled 3 months later, with the couple saying they got married on a whim. According to friends of the couple, they tried to give their marriage a fair shot, but it just wasn't meant to be. But while he was distracted being the newest member of the Hilton family, his personal assistant was stealing his Amex. Renata used his banking information to apply for an American Express credit card in his name and then added herself as a secondary user. In April 2011, the Ukrainian woman got too comfortable with her new boss and went on a wild spending spree. She sent the items to her apartment in Chelsea on 21st Street. Many of the purchases included pricey jewelry and exotic vacations. By the time her swindling days were over, she had stolen nearly $1 million from Meister. Unfortunately, Meister didn't notice the stolen funds for 10 months. He notified police in January 2012, and Renata was arrested 4 days later. She was charged with grand larceny, criminal possession of stolen property, identity theft, and forgery, and held on Rikers Island for a $100,000 bond. Her parents even tried to sell their home to help their daughter avoid jail. Renata also started a social media campaign to pay back the money she owed to Meister, but it was less than successful, raising a grand total of $335. She took the stand at the Manhattan Supreme Court in December 2013, where she pleaded guilty to felony grand larceny. She was sentenced up to 3 years behind bars. The defense team requested that she stay at Rikers Island, but the judge denied this motion and sent her to a prison in upstate New York. Number 2. Play money. Ex-NBA star Gilbert Arenas found out of the blue that his trusted personal assistant, John A. White, scammed him out of roughly $7 million in Arenas' estimation. However, on court docs, Arenas could only prove around $2.1 million. Arenas only found out when he started noticing discrepancies in one of his bank accounts where he would have what he called a play money bank account. White had given himself unauthorized access to this specific play money bank account that Arenas used basically as a petty cash account. Whenever Gilbert needed, for example, $20,000 for a weekend trip to Miami, Arenas would have White call up Arenas' money manager and have him transfer the money to Gilbert's play money bank account. Then the money would be in there for Arenas to use. But White went on and abused this power by telling Arenas' money manager that Arenas would need money for a made-up purchase. And as soon as that money would touch the play money account, White would transfer that money into his own bank account. So Arenas would never see the discrepancy in the balance, and the money manager would never follow up with Arenas since White was his personal assistant. At the height of Arenas' career, Arenas' assistant was stealing millions of dollars by transferring money from Arenas' bank account into his own. He spent the money on a home in Florida, a Ferrari, and a Range Rover. White was found guilty and sentenced to 57 months in federal prison and 2 years of supervised release. The judge banned him from opening or using any credit cards without his probation officer's permission. White asked for a retrial when new evidence emerged that could change his guilty conviction. Many witnesses came forward with statements that Arenas was aware of the big transactions White was making on his behalf. White also found signed forms from the bank showing that Arenas was fully aware of these transactions. People close to Arenas came forward to say that the NBA star was known to spend carelessly, like when he bought a home for one of his girlfriends in Florida. The scammer accused Arenas of lying when he said White wasn't authorized to make these big purchases. Then there are Arenas' Instagram posts that seem to brag brag about defrauding American Express by not paying his tab at a gentleman's club. Still, the judge wasn't convinced. He rejected White's request for a retrial, saying this new evidence didn't suggest innocence and wasn't relevant to the criminal case. Number 1. Forex Fun. Katie Blaymeyer moved to the United Arab Emirates in 2011 to start working as a physical education teacher at an international school where she taught a British curriculum. She was born and raised in Lancashire, England, but moved after her mother died in 2008. When her 5-year contract ended at the international school in UAE, Blaymeyer started doing private swimming lessons for the children of wealthy locals in their personal pools. Then, she got a Facebook message that invited her into a life of crime. Someone asked her if she was looking for work, hoping she would be able to swap their Emirati dirhams for another currency at a better rate than what the banks offer. At first, it didn't seem to be a problem. Blaymeyer, a staple in the Dubai party scene, did these currency exchanges for a while. A driver picked up the sender's money and brought it to Blaymeyer. Then she'd exchange it for cash in her British bank account. She offered reasonable rates, and there weren't any problems until things snowballed and went totally wrong. During the pandemic, she saw the opportunity to rip off many expats, especially Emirates airline crew members and pilots who had been laid off and were desperate for better exchange rates. She used fake names like Imogen Smith and Don Smith to lure them in. Her clients thought she was genuine until they realized their money wasn't being returned. One businessman, Mr. Osman, said he lost £42,000 to Blaymeyer after using her services to expand his kebab business. She told him she was pregnant and wanted to get rid of her dirham so she could return to her husband in the UK. A win-win for them both. But then she disappeared. Osman spent 2 stressful, sleepless weeks trying to get in touch with her. When he confided in some friends, they told him that Blaymeyer had a reputation for scams. An Australian air hostess lost £6,500 after trying to send money back home to put a deposit down on a house. A Spanish pilot said he lost £22,000 trying to send money home to pay for his father's funeral. He saw Blaymeyer's posts in an airline Facebook group and assumed she worked in the industry. He trusted her. The deal was supposed to save him £250 in bank fees, but the money never arrived in his account in Madrid. Blaymeyer met his wife and kids and was friendly to the whole family. The pilot never knew she was capable of such heartlessness. She also scammed a British pilot out of £50,000, a Belgian cabin crew member out of £20,000, and a French airline worker out of £18,000. WhatsApp messages show the dozens of excuses she used to explain why the victims never received their money. A Dubai resident sent her £28,000 as an investor to develop a food ordering app. Blaymeyer spent £2,000 on software development but never developed the app. The investors never saw his money. When victims tried to get their money back, Blaymeyer threatened them. She wasn't allowed to leave Lancashire until she paid back the debts owed to her swimming class business partner Alex Campbell, who took her to court after he invested £15,000 in her company, Float UAE, in exchange for a job. When Campbell tried to cash a security check for his investment, it bounced. At least 20 people filed complaints to the police, and Blaymeyer was arrested and jailed on Christmas Eve 2019. After a civil court case, a travel ban was placed, preventing Blaymeyer from leaving Dubai. The court instated a repayment plan and put her on the no-fly list. She was released from jail after repaying the debt that caused a previous check to bounce. Meanwhile, she blamed multiple people up the chain of command for all the money that had mysteriously vanished and denied that she was operating a scam. She said she used £100,000 of her personal savings to repay some victims, leaving 8 victims who owed a total of £80,000. According to Blaymeyer, she's the real victim here, saying she's been blackmailed and received death threats. Sometimes she even blamed the bank for the mix-ups that caused her to serve jail time. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what your opinion on the safety of the city or town that you're living in today.